Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Friday Food Fight. My name is Wes Christian, your host for this week, and we have got an amazing guest for you and an awesome show. Coming off of a little bit of a hiatus, we are really excited to bring you some fresh new content and an amazing guest for this week. And I'm actually going to turn it over to Mr. Bart Christian, nationally recognized speaker, to introduce our guest for this awesome Friday Food Fight. Bart?
Hey, Wes, it's great to be here, and it's great to be back with my good friend Joe Pettit. You know, a lot of people don't know about Joe is that Joe's a very accomplished speaker across the country, host of the Cup of Joe podcast, and, you know, just an all-around great guy. And I couldn't think of a better person to bring back for our kind of comeback from hiatus than Joe Pettit. So Joe, we've talked a lot, and you and I have become fast friends, and tell us a little bit about you and kind of what are you about today and what are you doing, and just kind of give us a little bit about Joe.
Well, Bart and Wes, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate the invite. It's always good to be in great company. That's the deal of life. Surround yourself with people smarter, better looking. So here we are. I'm in the right company here. I live with my family in Summerville, a little suburb right outside of Charleston, South Carolina. And we love it, absolutely love it here. I have 3 children. And the oldest is 18, about to be 19, and the youngest is 3.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll let that sit in for just a second. Yep, we got a gap of 16 years from the oldest to the youngest, but it's just like when you play video games, you'd hit that checkpoint. It's just helping us stay younger and keep moving forward in life. So we got extra energy inside of us now with this new little girl, Isabella Ray. But, man, I love life. And honestly, I never dreamed of be doing what I'm doing today. But as you mentioned, I have the great fortune of working for Charleston County School District as a supervisor. So basically, Charleston County is 50,000 students and second largest in the state of South Carolina. And I oversee about 16 of our schools. And then also on top of that, help with our social media, professional development, new hire, onboarding and all that good stuff. So life is fun, life is full, but really that's what it's supposed to be.
So you had a big gap between your kids. I stacked mine right on top of each other. I've got about a year and some change gap between my 2 boys. You got a big gap between yours.
We do quite a large one.
It was just the first one was so awesome, right?
Say that again?
I said the first one was just so awesome. You had to, really spend a lot of time with that first one.
Yeah, man, it's been good, but I've matured a lot. I've noticed in my parenting style and kind of how I feed into both of them. So listen, that my 2 oldest, they always say, well, why does she get to do this? And why do you guys do this? I'm like, listen, we're all more mature. So you're going to see things done a little bit differently from mom and dad. But man, yeah, it's great to have that new energy and new sense of life and that perspective in the house.
Yeah, and with that big a spread, there's 8 years between my son Wesley and my daughter Olivia. And, the funny thing is when we had Wesley, we were broke. I mean, baroque, and we had Olivia and things were different, and so it's always different. The older kids see things going on with the young kids, like, what is up with that? And you go, well, life has just changed.
Yeah. So true. Being the youngest of 3 boys, I have a gap of 7 to 10 years as well. So I get it on all levels as a parent and also as a child as well, a son of my mom's. But so life is great here. We're going into the summertime, and here in Charleston we're going a little bit later than most school districts across the nation. We finish up June 18th, but it's an exciting time because we're going to go roll and ride into some summer feeding, because I believe that school nutrition is truly, and Bart, you and I talked about this, is on the cusp of something awesome, something great, something we've never seen before, and truly in our second year. But this time around, with all students eating for free, is that now we're going to have more students in-house. So we're going to be able to truly maximize the potential of being able to feed all the students for free. So I just think that school nutrition is heading in a direction that I've never seen it in my 7 years in the industry. And I'm excited to see what the next 7 and the next 70 bring as well.
Amen. Well, let me ask this. You had, in our conversation last time, we talked about a couple of things. And, one thing is your philosophy. You have kind of a philosophy, and you call it the 5 Ps. I think it's just awesome. So share with us real quick, what are exactly the 5 Ps?
Yeah, so somewhere down the road, I'm going to write a book that's called "Lead Like a Farmer," right? Because a farmer, what they do is they take something as small as a seed, and it's funny if you really think about where did the seed come from and how do you produce something as well. And we've had many books out there, start with the end in mind from Covey, and then Simon Sinek made it popular about starting with why. But if the 5 P's is basically this: the first thing we want to think about, whether it's a good relationship with our spouse, our children, or at work, or if we're trying to produce those profits or great customer service, the first P we want to think about is actually the 5th one, produce. But we all must start, when we think about what we're going to produce, we must start with the first P, which is to plan. The first step is to plan things out, and then we prep, and then we plant, and we practice, and then we produce. And so basically, I'll put it to you this way, Bart, is if I'm going to go plant a garden, the first thing I think about, do I want to produce tomatoes or do I want to produce green beans? Once I decide on what it is I want to produce, then I plan, then I prep the garden and add what needs to be added and pull the weeds out, and then I plant the seed of what I want to produce. But when we plant the seed, it's not all over, right? And so now I have to go out and water it on a daily and make sure that I'm disciplined so that I see it all the way to the fruit side, which is what we all want. But a lot of times we forget that it starts with a plan.
Exactly. And you wrote a blog that I thought just went hand in hand with the 5 P's philosophy that I read on your website called Optimism 101, and that you and I share so much in that philosophy. But tell us about Optimism 101 and what exactly how that can be put into practice and how it fits in with the 5 P's.
Right. So there's no denying I'm not a great writer. Well, matter of fact, I'm not even an average writer. I'm really not an average speaker. But what I do bring to the table is the thing that I just give my mom all the credit for. And that's just having a positive, favorable attitude. If there's one thing that I can choose every single day I wake up is how I will choose to see the world and how I will choose to see the things that come my way. Charles Swindoll has a quote. I believe it's life is 10% of what happens to you, 90% of how you react to it. And I believe that optimism is the ultimate thing. If I'm looking to bring somebody on board, I need to know that you're coachable. And I'm looking more at your personality than I am your skill set, because I can train you on the skills, but I'm hiring for your attitude. And so when I was thinking about this blog post of Optimism 101, optimism, it's funny, optimism by the negative folks, it gets a bad rap, right? They're like, oh, that's fake. Don't be, you're too optimistic. You're looking, in a pipe dreams and all this stuff. But it's really not the case. And so I like to put practical pieces behind it. And so really the 3 tips that I share is that you listen only to positive, encouraging messages. That's where it starts. That's almost that's maybe not the planning stage. That's probably a little bit more in the prep and also the planting stages. And the other is that you start your day by saying these 8 simple words that Les Brown says, and I make everybody repeat it normally in a crowd settings, that good things are supposed to happen to me. I start every single day saying good things are supposed to happen to me, because if I believe it and I start to look for it, I believe in turn you're going to get what it's like that you say and what you put out. And then the final piece of that is truly write 3 things that you're grateful for. And I say twice a day. And I don't always do it twice a day. Okay. Can I be real? If I get it once a day, I'm heading in the right direction, because ultimately I've never been upset when I'm showing gratitude. I've never been in a position of, no matter what's happening at work or what's happening at home or in society, when I truly stop and give perspective back. And as Americans, man, we really have a lot to be grateful for, considering some of our folks all across this world and even people in the U.S. as well. And so really, Bart and Wes, what it does is that it allows us to stay in a favorable position. And I believe, from being an ex-athlete, a has-been, I believe that when you're in position, that's when you can actually make the play. And so a lot of people wonder why they can't produce. They haven't positioned themselves right with the right mindset and really working on that optimism.
Well, yeah, I would add, yeah, I heard Zig Ziglar say one time, he said, optimism will not get you everything, but optimism will make everything you do get better. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. And you talk about gratitude. I just, as a matter of fact, just finished yesterday a short little course on empowering gratitude, because I think people don't understand, and you and I share this, Joe, is that how powerful gratitude truly is in developing your mindset. Because I see people that get up in the morning. You got two kinds of people. You got people that get up in the morning and go, "Oh Lord, not another day," and people got to go, "Thank you, Lord, for another day." And they might have a mantra of gratitude they roll through, but they never empower it. And what I mean by empower is write it down, say it out loud, remind yourself constantly of what you're grateful for, and add to it every day. Don't be picky. There's a whole bunch of things to be grateful for, and so not just that you can see and hear and talk. There's just tons of things that surround us every single day, and that optimism 101 thing just really impacted me, Joe, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
I think that's such an important thing as well for this past year that we've all been through, to really focus on that gratitude piece. It's something that my wife and I started doing in the mornings just a couple of weeks ago. Is we actually sit down and we do a gratitude journal together, which has been just an amazing exercise to really sit down and be grateful for the amazing things that we have in our life as a collective, not necessarily. I mean, obviously you can do it as an individual as well, and I think that's important as on another level. But being able to sit down and be grateful with my wife and sit there and have breakfast, a cup of coffee, has just been an amazing way for us to reflect and not focus on the garbage that we can oftentimes get overwhelmed with, that is just inundates us. Especially you turn on the television. I know, Bart, you're not a big fan of news, but so many people, that's the way they start their day, with just the negative input versus being grateful for what we truly have.
Mm-hmm.
So true. And, a lot of times I kind of use this same metaphor to explain that what happens is that people become comfortable with the uncomfortable. So those people continue waking up every morning and just going and sitting in the same seat, just locking into what the news is going to feed them. But yet they are uncomfortable with that position. Maybe they're not happy with their finances. Maybe they're not happy with their relationships or their job, or, whatever the case may be. And then the next thing you know, they've just began to accept that as comfortable when deep down they're not. And so here's the thing, for the folks that are listening, because I know our audience is school nutrition folks, is that what happens is that a lot of people say, well, don't bring your personal life into your professional life. And that's great in theory, but it's not actual. Because wherever I go, I go. And so whatever I'm bringing in with me. And so that's where, when we talk about how do you start your day, like literally most people either walk, bike, catch a bus, or drive to work, right? I mean, I don't know that anybody that just lives in the school. So there's some type of gap of space between your home to your job. And I want to challenge people to really think about, what am I feeding in here before I walk in there? Because that's what's going to be able to produce. And those are the things that I really want to help people with, because man, now with the internet, you don't even have to listen to commercials anymore. Just tune into whatever you want to, find what it is that feeds you and fuels you. And hopefully that's something that's positive.
Yeah, I think you just, for the first time in history, we can absolutely 100% control what goes into our mind. And it is simply a choice of action. And I think that's, that 10, the average American drives about 20 minutes to work every day. So if you spent that 20 minutes driving and just one drive, not both ways, just one way, you'd get like a semester, maybe 2 semesters of college or you could, in that period of time. And it's simply a choice. It really, really, really is.
Yep, absolutely. Well, and Joe, I'll change gears real quick. I got to tell you, after just the first couple of minutes of talking with you here, I think that your Cup of Joe show that you do is so appropriately titled, because I'm excited just sitting here talking to you guys, and I don't even know why I'm so darn excited. Your energy is just so intoxicating. It's amazing to sit here and start the day off with you. Well, you mentioned a couple of minutes ago when we first started off this show that you're really excited for this upcoming school year. We're heading into summer months, planning for this upcoming year. What are a couple of things that you're really just jazzed up about right now?
I think the beauty is where school nutrition departments can truly put their foot into the ground and head into a new direction. Not a new direction as if they were doing something wrong, but from what it looks like actually is true. Because I'm going to be honest, being someone that was inside of a district, and were they going to push it for a second year and make meals free for everyone? Were they not? And I mean, the reimbursement rates are some of the best that we've ever seen. And now you can offer all the programs to people, weekend meals and supper. it's just phenomenal. I know it's by state, check disclaimer, check with your state agency. Don't take Joe's advice, right? But I think there's a beautiful piece about where we're heading, and then these potential bills that are in the pipeline where, you may see an additional reimbursement years down the road for buying local. Man, listen, school nutrition is in a moment right now where the word essential truly by definition means absolutely necessary. And so by definition, we have not only understood as people that we're absolutely necessary, but now we have been just pressed into the spotlight that the program, that the need, that the services is absolutely necessary. And so I'm excited just to see how nutrition departments are going to really be able to grow and expand and just do things people that they've never been able to reach before from a student's sake. But, all fingers crossed is that we get a lot of these vacancies filled and really start to impact a lot of the personnel, because they're going to see growth and a change in a time that, again, I'm just saying this, that we've never seen ever in school nutrition before. So this is great stuff that's coming down the line for industry.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I noticed your shirt earlier to show everyone exactly what your shirt says. It says boss is crossed out, manager crossed out, and leader. And what's the bottom say down there?
It says to leave a legacy.
Leave a legacy. So talk to me a little bit about leadership for a second, because obviously, what you just mentioned and kind of some of the things you're excited about for this upcoming year really stem from the top to the bottom. So talk to me a little bit about leadership and kind of some different maybe skills, tactics that you've implemented at your district to really make this next year just a success from the get-go.
Yeah, I believe if we truly take a look at, when I keep talking about this is the brightest time ever, in order to leave a legacy, you have to really look at it that it's so much bigger than who you are and what you're doing. And so what we have to begin shifting our mind and almost, Bart, you kind of mentioned it earlier about kind of creating that vision and being able to visualize these certain types of things coming to fruition. So that's where the plan starts, right? In order to leave a legacy. And the first thing I would ask people is, I can tell you if you're ready to leave a legacy if you tell me what your plans are for this year. Because if you're only stopping at the end of this fiscal year, then I know that we need to cast your vision and help you. I love my friend Bob Goff. I call him my friend because I feel like he is. Bob Goff is a writer, author of Dream Big, and he's just a phenomenal person. I could go into all of his biography, but that's not what the show's about. The fact is that he taught me how to think of legacy style living. Because the beautiful part as a leader is that we have an opportunity to not just serve a meal. We have an opportunity to shift the future of a student while also, this is the beauty about this, while also being able to shift a family's, for generations to come that we work alongside of as well. And so when we talk about leadership and leaving a legacy, we start to think about, I'm not here to just manage the funds, which is important. I'm not here to just be your boss because that's a title only, but I'm truly here because our paths cross. I want us both to be better 5, 10, 15, 50 years down the road. Because, and I'll leave with this analogy on this particular question, is that we have to start thinking about planting a fruit orchard instead of a tomato garden. Because a lot of us in leadership, we're thinking about what we can produce for this season, which is good. We need something for this season. But for a fruit orchard, you have to be way patient. But a fruit orchard will continue coming back on its own, year in, year out, for decades to come. And ultimately, that's where we want our leadership, our capability and our reach to be able to come back for decades and not just have to replant it every single season.
So I got to admit, so that is so powerful, because what I just heard you say is you got to be careful that the seed you plant is the seed that you really, really want. And so many times people they think they plant good seeds, but they're planting tomato plants, but you got to replant every single year. They're not planting apple trees, which come back year after year after year and grow on their own. I just think that's an awesome. So, but in the plant, be careful the seed you plant. I think that's a good one. Yeah.
And can I plug a quick tease? Is that all right?
Yeah.
I'll plug a quick tease. So I'm in the midst. So just a quick tease. It's not even public. This is probably the first time I've even shared it. So Friday Food Fight family and Wes and Bart, thanks for letting me just give this quick plug. I'm actually in the midst of writing a little children's book. Just got the first edit back today, actually this morning. And it's all about choosing the right seeds. So I'm so glad that you picked up on it, because here's the thing. Every single morning we wake up, all throughout our day, we're planting seeds. If you hit the snooze button, you just planted a seed. You may not want what it's going to produce, but you planted a seed when you woke up and did the gratitude journal. You planted a seed when you sat down and really did that empowering gratitude video lesson. Every choice, because seeds are equals choices, every single seed we plant, every choice we make will produce something. Either it's going to produce a life we want or a life that we don't want. So I'm so thankful that you hit on that, because that's what we have to think about as leaders, as spouses, as parents, wherever we go, that every decision is a seed that we're planting.
Yeah, good. Hey, good or bad, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
We always talk about the good seeds, but what we don't talk about a lot of times is, okay, somebody cuts me off in traffic, and I pound the steering wheel and scream out some expletive or give them the high sign, and we've planted a seed in our heart, and it's going to take. I heard a guy say one time that if you take a gallon of white paint, let's just say your mind's a gallon of white paint, and you drop one single drop of black dye into that white paint, it changes the entire white paint. And in order to get that paint back to white, you have to inject 4 to 5 gallons of paint through that paint in order to get it back to white again. So every single drop of negative can sometimes take 4 to 5 times the positive to counteract it. And that's something I think people don't really understand, is how you can actually build a residual of positive in your mind. So when those things happen, you might go, ugh, but then you say, wow, that's fascinating. I wonder why that guy's in such a hurry, and that I think that's something people don't understand, is how powerful seeds are, good and bad.
Yeah, because the hardest thing to do is to go out and fix a yard that is full of weeds.
Exactly.
Because everything has a seed. Perfect.
I love that. I'm thinking about just the depth and the power of that statement, that everything has a seed, because it's and I'm going to reiterate just a couple of things, just because I really feel like they're important pieces to drive home. Every decision, regardless of whether or not you're intending to make a decision, you're planting a seed. And so this thought of, well, I'll wait until tomorrow, or this procrastination of, well, I'll start that self-improvement project tomorrow, or I'll start reading that book tomorrow, or I'll start the gratitude journal tomorrow. You've planted a seed today. Whether or not you're planning on doing something tomorrow, you haven't started today. So, don't, as Zig Ziglar says, you mentioned him earlier, Bart, don't get, baked in the squat?
Yeah, don't get baked in the squat. That's
don't
exactly
get baked
right.
in the squat. Don't procrastinate until tomorrow to plant that good seed. Plant that good seed today, right now.
Yeah, and we could continue just talking about this entire, the seeds, and because what a lot of times we are not thinking about what it will produce, right? We're not thinking about what it's going to produce. But like you said, imagine if you thought for just a moment in that procrastination. And so this particular stage that we're talking about is the prep piece, right? Like naturally, by my personality, being someone who has a high eye in the disc, casting visions, getting people motivated, getting people inspired to the vision is good. But my blind spot a lot of times is not seeing a project all the way to completion, or losing the energy before seeing it to the completion. And so in my mind, I have to be aware of that so that I can prep. I got to pull the weed, so to speak, so that I can go back and plant the good seed. And so if we thought about how every seed is going to produce something, I believe we would be a little bit more aware and really cognizant of, is that the seed I really want to plant today? I love that example of cutting somebody off in traffic, because you just planted a seed by your reaction. Mm-hmm. Good or bad.
Yeah.
Right.
And Joe, you've got just such a positive outlook on life and just so much wisdom. Who has had a major impact on your life? You mentioned Bob Goff, I believe, was the one individual, the author that you just referenced a second ago. But who other than Bob has had an impact on your maybe childhood, your upbringing, and really contributed to this positive outlook that you bring to the table today?
It started with my mom in more ways than one, right? Starting with my mom because, man, she is just that same energy. Like, I love her. Everything about her is just what I try to put back out into the world. My grandmother as well was another, my grandfather as well. Like I don't try to discount any of my, my but I think the other key is that I've had so many people that have just generously volunteered to pour into me. And I think because of a lot of the seeds I planted, through my high school years, were a lot of great things. Like I was doing a lot of really good stuff, and student government president, and college athlete. All these different things were happening in the right direction. But then I planted a lot of bad seeds through, because right now when I look at my circle, when I look at my group, man, it is people that are just heading in the right direction. And so, I give my mom most of the credit. My wife deserves the biggest nod as well, because she sees the good and the bad and the ugly, right? She sees all the outtakes, is what we call it on the movies, right? So if my life was a movie, she sees all the outtakes and the blooper reels. But, ultimately what I realized is when I was given that second, third, fourth, fifth chance, is that my life has a purpose. Every one of our lives do, actually. And I realized that if I was going to be able to do the impact and the things that I was really protected from in a lot of different cases, if I was going to be able to put that back out there, I had to make a lot of other people proud. But most importantly, I had to look in the mirror and be okay with what I saw. And so that's why I wake up in the mornings. And actually, it's so ironic. This book is right beside me. I don't know if it'll show up correct, I guess, but The Power of Positive Thinking by Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. Old book, but there's so many great quotables in there that have helped pour into me. And as we said earlier, this is the best time ever if you are truly into personal and professional development, because you can be counseled and mentored by people who don't even know it, that can just pour and speak life into you. And so that was not the short answer, because I don't know how to do those, Wes. But the highlights are my mom, grandmother, and my wife. All right.
Well, and with the leadership that you've developed over the years, do you feel like the level of leadership and just your I guess your ability to motivate your team was something that you were just born with, or was that something that you really cultivated over the years? And how did school nutrition really contribute to that process?
It's a great question. I got it. So I worked in food and bev after I quit playing football. I worked in food and bev for about 12, 15 years, and different, positions, management, front of the house, back of the house, all those different stages. And so I really came into school nutrition to be a teacher and a coach. Like that was my goal. My communications degree, ironically, does not translate into the core curriculum. So I went into school nutrition where I have food experience. And long story short of it all, basically I came in as a manager, and I had about 12 people in my school. Job position came open to be a supervisor. I applied, thought I had a long shot to make it. They took a chance on me. And if you take a chance on me, and if you bet on me when I know that I'm the underdog, I'm going to make sure that not only do I help you solidify your bet, your wager, your gamble, but I also know that I have a lot resting on my shoulders as well. And so school nutrition has helped me, because when I went to the first ANC, when I started to see like-minded people who, our industry is loaded with talented people. Mm-hmm. And when I saw that, I said, wait a second. I'll never forget, it was in Atlanta. And maybe 2017, I think. I just said, man, this is it. Like one day I'm going to be on that stage. I called my wife and told her that day. And I said, this is going to help, because school nutrition is all about developing you as a professional. And they make that a core focus. And so school nutrition has helped me on so many levels, because it's truly in this career that I found my true calling and purpose. And that's what I want to help other people do, is to see your job not as a job, but truly as your purpose and calling.
Amen.
Yeah, that's so powerful, so powerful. Mm-hmm. And, you mentioned just an industry full of, amazing talent and just awesome people, but it's an industry that's constantly growing and learning as well. And I know that you've mentioned a couple of times in today's show, the power of professional development, and you've shown a couple of books and really talked about some different materials that you use to stay on the top of your game. Talk to me a little bit about what type of professional development do you tend to gravitate to just really, again, stay at the top of your game in the industry? Yeah.
Oh man, just lost the gentleman's name. Old quote, but basically says, if you spend 1 hour a day in a year, you'll basically in 3 years you become a national authority. 5 years you become the leader. In 7 years you'll be that expert that everybody's looking towards. 1 hour a day in our chosen field. Earl Nightingale, that's who said it. Mm-hmm. And so with that particular saying, I heard that several years back. I am obsessed with human behavior. I love understanding how people behave, why they behave that way and what they're currently thinking. And so one of the books that I've been reading, almost like a textbook, it's called What's Your Genius by Jay Nibley. And Jay did a long research and created these phenomenal tools. But basically, this book is all about how to put the right people in the right place and to maximize, because there's two things that he learned is that people are self-aware and that they're authentic to what they're good at. And when you know what you're good at and you do that more, you're truly going to have the impact and really see that grow to the next level. Because it was Andy Stanley who I heard back in 2017, because I was always thought you had to be good at everything, right? I was like, I need to sharpen this skill, sharpen that skill, be good here. I need to be better than that person or that. But it was Andy Stanley, the communicator and pastor, who said, you don't need to be good at everything. You just need to be really good at what you're really good at, and then find those people to support your weaknesses. And so What's Your Genius is the book that I've really been I love human behavior. Love it.
Yeah, and I love that strategy as well, that, you don't have to be good at everything, but you can develop a team around you to make just a great system. And it's really about that core system that everyone works together towards a common cause. And, really cultivating that team is really just so important. Talk to me a little bit about developing your team, empowering your team. I know over the past year, a lot of people that we've talked to in the past months have, struggled in different ways. It's been a challenging year across the board. What are some things going into this upcoming year that you're going to be implementing to really empower your team and let them know just how special they truly are, and really recognize them for the awesome work that they're doing on a daily basis?
Yeah, I believe, just based back off of what Bart was sharing earlier about that great visual for me. I love visuals about the gallon of white paint and that little blemish of the black paint that gets in, and how much it takes to go on top of that. So I think that I focus a lot on our personnel, because, that's what we're specifically, you are asking this question. I want to continue to make them believe more in themselves. Because what's happened over their lifetime, a lot of our folks, and I mean, I grew up eating, free and reduced meals as well. You have to understand that a lot of our folks, in school and education, we put the government puts a lot of money into Title I schools because they're at risk, right? And so what we also have to remember is that people came from broken backgrounds. And so I think the thing for me to really be able to help people with this upcoming year is to understand how different people behave, and understand why they behave that way. And really trying to, if I could inject people, if I could give a vaccine that was all about getting rid of lack of confidence, I would. I mean, I'd get Pfizer all over it. Like, if we could just inject people with that, we'd make millions, and then I'd retire somewhere, Puerto Rico. I don't know where I'd go, but it would be fun. But the fact is that I really just want to focus on, and, I did this survey in the midst of some of my sessions, and over 1,500 people have been surveyed through this. And one of the things that I ask them is, what is that one weed that you need to pull in order to produce your seeds of greatness? And so what most people by 70% say that they struggle with self-belief. Like they just don't believe that they have what it takes. And so a lot of people think that that's such a hard thing to put your finger on. But I think the more I tell them that, I'm grateful for these three things that you do, like taking that same gratitude journal, but empowering that gratitude, as you talked about, Bart. I can't wait to see this course that you're talking about. That's what we want to press back on to these people, because if I understood anything in the last year, is that we're human. And by trying to extend that same amount of grace that I expect when I'm down or when something happened to me, giving that back, and then just injecting them with confidence and just really pouring into them so that they can reach their full potential. Because if somebody hadn't taken a chance on me, and I know that somebody is watching this because he always watches your Friday food fight. So shout out to my executive director, Walter Campbell, is that ultimately somebody took a chance on me. And I believe that there's so many other people out there that somebody just needs to speak life into them, because they're this close to seeing something take root.
I'll add this. You mentioned vaccine. We have the vaccine for anxiety and depression and worry and fear, and it's empowered gratitude. And that's so many people, you talk to them and they're struggling with their self-concept, they're struggling with their self-worth, and you start talking to them and you realize that they have a root gratitude issue. They have more. It can be great. Obviously, it can be greater than that, as we all know. But it seems to always root back to them not having the ability or the confidence or the wherewithal to sit down and really start putting voice and pen to gratitude, which just multiplies it in your mind. I mean, something psychological happens when you wake up in the morning and go, I'm thankful for this, I'm thankful for that, I'm thankful. Or you sit down and you write it down and meditate over it for a few minutes. Something magic really happens. And I think that's the beginning of the vaccine for those kind of issues, for people that are willing to take it.
Yeah. Well, as we get kind of closer to wrapping up the end of the show today, is there any final advice, words of wisdom, final parting thoughts that you'd like to really leave as empowering key elements to take away from today's conversation?
Yeah, I believe it's this. If there's one thing that I learned is I was really coming out of a dark place in my life in 2016 and coming into really where I am today, is what I want to really encourage all school nutrition directors, all professionals, parents, whatever you do, industry folks, is to truly focus on winning one day at a time. Mm-hmm. If yesterday was a success, doesn't promise that today will be. If yesterday was a failure, it doesn't promise that today will be a failure. The key is that we overestimate what can be done in a day and we underestimate what can be done in a year, as the saying goes. So what I want you to focus on is just winning one day at a time. And that creates that momentum. And when momentum starts rolling, it's hard to stop a train that's coming down the tracks, right? It's hard to set those brakes for a locomotive that's coming. And so the key is that we have to win one day at a time and not be so bogged down when we make mistakes, because newsflash, we're going to make them. Mm-hmm. But you can also pick it back up tomorrow, because today's a new day. There'll never be another June 7th, 2021 event. There'll never be a June 11th, 2021. And so the key here is that we have to keep in mind and remember that today's the day, win it one day at a time.
I'll only add one thing. And, the Apostle Paul said this. He said, out of the abundance of the heart, you give to others. I'm paraphrasing. From the good seed, you give good, and from the bad seed, you give bad. And Joe, I can just tell you from watching you, I can see the abundance you're building in your heart. And I'm looking forward to sitting in an audience, watching you talk. I'm looking forward to that day when we can all get back together again. I think we're right around the corner. And Joe Pettit Inspires is the perfect website address for you, because I'm coming away from this day very inspired. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
thank you
absolutely. Both. And Joe, if you could just tell everyone, how can they get a hold of you if they want to reach out? Is there any contact information that you'd like us to provide in the show notes?
Yeah, so they can no, I'm just kidding. No, they can reach me at joepettitinspires.com. That's JOEPETTIT, inspires with an S.com. Of course, on all the social media outlets, you can find me there as well. Of course, on Sundays at 5, we do a little 5-10 minute live with Liz Rossell of C-Level Social and Kern of Ingenious Culinary Concepts. It's just a small little bit that we try to put out into the world, ultimately trying to feed and seed something that we want to see produce 50 years down the road. And if you can find inspiration in life, I think you should not only find it, but I think you should share it. So thank you so much for having me on today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We will definitely look forward to chatting with you again very soon. Thank you both for your time. We really appreciate it. And for everyone out there watching, this has been another episode of Friday Food Fight, and we will see you again here next week at 12 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Take care and have an awesome weekend.